What were you doing on December 31st, 2019? Where were you? Who were you with? How did you ring in the new year that was supposed to be 2020? Did you make any New Year's resolutions, set your intentions, or in the theme of 2020 vision, did you set a new vision for your life? Who would have known that just 3 months later, all those plans, dreams, hopes, and intentions would need to change? I don't think any of us could have imagined that we would spend 9 months in one form or another of quarantine. It has been a hard year. Some would say it's been the hardest year of their lives. Others would argue not the hardest, but we would all still agree that it has been, dare I say it, an unprecedented year. Every year, the Oxford English Dictionary chooses a word of the year. In 2019, it was climate emergency. In 2018, it was toxic. But this year has seen so many seismic events that Oxford Dictionaries has expanded its word of the year to encompass several, quote, words of an unprecedented year. Most lexical innovation happened this year as a reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic. Included in these are coronavirus, pandemic, social distancing, shelter in place, lockdown, face masks, super spreader, PPE, and unmute. While so many new words have emerged and taken root in our society, most people would say that this is the year that has left us speechless. Unspeakable amounts of grief, loneliness, death and illness, canceled plans, and changed traditions. The Reverend Dr. Gregory Love, a friend of this congregation, shared a presentation with us back in November on God, COVID-19, and suffering. You can still find that adult education video on our YouTube channel. And in it, he proposes 4 models of where God might be in the midst of all this suffering caused by the pandemic. He admits that there is no one perfect model, but the one he agrees with the most is the 3rd model he presents, which affirms 2 truths. 1, God is not the source of suffering, but against it. And 2, suffering is not the end of the story. God is creating something new. The Reverend Steve Stockman from Belfast agrees, quoting Inderjit Bogal, Methodist minister, theologian, and once leader of the Corrymeela community. He writes, "Check the first 2 verses of the Bible. That explains where God is, and the rest of the Bible and our lives prove the point. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Verse 2, now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. There was an emptiness, a formless void over the deep. That wasn't God. God was there, though, not only there, but creating. So in the deep, dark depths of coronavirus, I expect God to be where God always is, hovering over this murkiness, this tragedy, empathizing with those who have lost loved ones and those fighting for their lives in hospitals. And I do not only expect God to just be there, but to be creating too. God will be weaving good in the seeming despair. In March, our plans, dreams, hopes, and intentions changed. They had to. And perhaps in December, as we say good riddance to a year like no other, we can say that we too have been changed. There are many things we might call this year: a strange year, a crazy year, a lost year. There's been a huge upsurge of all of those phrases since 2019. As people of faith, however, we believe in a God of redemption, a God who is doing a new thing, a God for whom nothing is lost or wasted. Jan Richardson, artist and poet, writes, From all that is broken, let there be beauty. From what is torn, jagged, ripped, frayed, let there be not just mendings, but meetings unimagined. May the God in whom nothing is wasted gather up every scrap, every shred and shard, and make of them new paths, doorways, worlds. No matter what your 2020 looked like, whether you lost a loved one, got COVID, felt isolated and alone, God has been there with you, because that is where God is, in the midst of the murky depths of human pain. But that is not the end of the story, because as Frederick Buechner writes, resurrection means the worst thing is never the last thing, and we are a resurrection people. We see this more readily in other aspects of transformation rather than our own. We know that grapes must be crushed to make wine, diamonds form under pressure, olives are pressed to release oil, seeds grow in darkness. So perhaps when we feel crushed under pressure, pressed, or in darkness, we too are in a powerful place of transformation, and that is when God is doing a new thing within and among us. We saw glimmers of this even in 2020. Babies were born, new appreciation was had for the simple act of gathering together, gratitude swelled for those on the front lines and essential workers, a vaccine was approved and began distribution. But so much more remains to be done in order for a more just and fair world to be born. As we say goodbye to 2020 and hello to 2021, this is our opportunity to commit to something better, something new, something that further resembles God's dream for this world. Like the sheep today in the children's meditation, who shaved off her own wool to clothe the wolf pup. What must we shed and get rid of so that we can begin a new year clothed in love and compassion, humility and hope? How will we go forward into 2021 to be co-creators with God for a new future? Because God has been creating all through this year, and something new is on the cusp of breaking forth. Maybe it's as simple as committing to listen, both for God and to others, or as big as considering a change in vocation. All I know is that this year, I want to be more like Jesus, and by that I mean hang out with sinners, upset religious people, tell stories that make people think, choose unpopular friends, be kind, loving, and merciful, and take naps on boats. Y'all, it's been a hard year. But the birth of Christ, which we celebrate just during this season, reminds us that new life and resurrection are not only possible, it has already begun. The prophet Isaiah knew it. Simeon and Anna knew it when they encountered the Christ child in the temple. And we too, as witnesses of the birth of Christ and the grace of Christ, can also have faith and know deep in our bones and in our hearts that new life and resurrection have already begun. And so I leave you with these words by Howard Thurman as he chose to move into a new year following Christmas. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and the princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among people, and to make music in the heart. Let it be so. Amen.